Welcome back to another episode of Sport Exposure Podcast. We're here to expose our stories, expose our journeys, expose the things that we went through as a student athlete. And I'm here with Marcus Ward, which has a very inspiring story. Tell us about yourself.
I am Marcus Ward. I am from Newport News, Virginia. I am a QMHP. I have a nonprofit called BYDS, Before You Do Something.
I like that. Before you do something. How you come up with that name?
So we came up with that. Me and my uncle came up with it by, we go into these detention centers and we work with these youths. And basically, we asked them to, kind of work on effective communication. So basically, most people don't start thinking until they get into a jacked up situation.
Right.
So we said,
it's too late.
Before, you see what I'm saying? So basically, it was like, think before you do something. At first, it was before you do something, think. Then we thought about it. You want to think before you do something. So instead of getting in the back of the cop with your hands behind your back thinking, think
about
before
it first.
Before you do something.
I like that. I like that. So here at Sport Exposure, we're all about celebrating our triumphs and learning from our defeats. When you think about your story, you think about your journey as a student athlete to now, what comes to mind?
Basically, everything that I've been through. So from, tragedies in the family, from being incarcerated and being able to continue on life and coming into society and still being effective. So we just fighting, mentally, just keep going.
Uphill battle.
It's an uphill battle where you just keep going. You just remain stable. Don't overthink nothing, depending on the situation. And you just go from there.
All right. Now you ready? We about to get into it.
All right, let's go.
All right. Let's talk about your student athlete experience.
So I went to Heritage High School.
The other HHS.
The other HHS. The real HHS. I don't know. I'm going to get that clear up in here. The real HHS. My childhood, pretty much, I grew up in the bottom of Newport News. It was a dead end at the towers. So I stayed on the 8th floor. 9 times out of 10, when I woke up in the morning, from the 8th floor, I would go to the 12th floor. By the time I got to the 12th to the first floor, probably about 16 of us. And we played football all day. We just do that. So from there, it just led to, naturally being able to play sports. So at Heritage, I was on the swim team, basketball, football, and I did 1 year track.
Oh, all around athlete.
Yeah. So I quit. I actually was on the basketball team, and it was kind of too much for me, right?
When you say too much, what you mean?
I mean, I had a coach. We had a coach. He best coach ever. Mm-hmm. The conditioning that we was doing, not for real. I just won't with it.
Different.
It was different, and I went through it and made it, right? And when I made it through it, I'd quit then and went to the swim team. But I only wanted to do that to get my endurance up.
Very strategic.
That's it. I didn't do it because I didn't have it in me. All my friends and everything, they was pissed. Like,
you did all of that.
Your name on the board. I'm like, I'm not doing it because it's not gonna stop from here.
Nah.
We would probably get up at Heritage, right? And we would probably run a little past Dora Miller. Probably further than that. Circle on around and run back. We wouldn't touch a basketball for about 30 minutes to an hour.
Mm-hmm. Conditioning.
Shout out to Coach Shields. Rodney Shields. He know who he is. Yeah.
So
basically, after swimming, I went to basketball, played basketball, very successful. If I had to say from 98 to 2002, that's when I was there. I can honestly say I was probably one of the top 2 or top 3 shooters in the district then.
For sure.
For sure.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
So after high school?
So basically after basketball, I got granted a football scholarship to Coffeyville, Kansas. And without going on a recruiting trip, I said I'm going because I wanted to get out of Virginia.
Kansas.
Mm. So I was nervous about leaving, but I had a coach that had a family down there, a distant family, and they was like, when you get down there, you good. We got you. So signed a scholarship, and rest in peace to my cousin Zed. He got killed in Norfolk. And probably then, he was probably the closest person to me. Closer than my brothers, my sisters. I mean, I love them, but...
This is right before you about to leave?
This was right towards the end of my senior year at football. And that's when I think things took a turn for the worse. Because I signed my scholarship while we was playing football in my 12th grade year.
And that's usually like around February, right?
And that's right around like February. Mm-hmm. So I signed and graduated. And 2 weeks later, I was incarcerated.
Wow.
Right.
Quick turnaround.
Quick turnaround. When he passed away, I kind of like lost faith in everything. Because I said, for somebody that you needed the most or that was so important to you, how could you take that person away from you?
So what was going through your head?
Nothing. I ain't believe nothing. You know, and then I didn't think, you know, the little altercation I got into was that serious. Put a little fabrication on it in a Commonwealth state, it can turn real ugly.
Yeah. You gotta know where you at.
Yeah. And at the time I didn't. I just went rational. I mean, just didn't think about it. Just jumped out there, got into an altercation, and it got bad for, you know, an individual. And
you didn't make it to Kansas.
And I never made it to Kansas. So.
How long were you incarcerated?
6 years.
And while you were in there, what was going through your mind?
And when it first started, I said to myself, I said, dang, like how I'm gonna do. Well, I started out with 5. I got in trouble while I was in there. Mm-hmm. So I said, how I'm gonna do 5 years? I'm just counting. And I was real tight with my family. So me not being here or being around my family, they was like, oh no, he ain't gonna make it in there. He ain't gonna make it in there. You know, he's a mama's boy, but little do they knew the things that I was going through in the streets and the things that I was doing within that small time that Zed had got killed. So once I got incarcerated, as soon as I got incarcerated, I got into a fight over a newspaper. As soon as I got in there, I was like, oh, it's real in here. I said, this is crazy.
So coming home, you pursued education?
So the whole time I was incarcerated, I said I wanted to go to college because I knew that everybody that I had went to school with within my time frame was going to be either graduated and had kids and moved on with their life. And I kept hearing about it. So I came home a better basketball player than I was before. Fit, huge.
So while you were in there, you were training?
I just played ball. And the thing about in there is if you play ball and you're an athlete, you're popular throughout the system. So it made time easy.
So how often were you playing basketball?
I played basketball so much that they gave me a job in the gym.
Do you think that helped you through your 6 years?
Yeah, not only that is getting accustomed to strangers. At first when I got in there, I would suppress my feelings because we was around a bunch of men. And I would, you know, I ain't talking to y'all.
So when did you loosen up?
I met this guy in there, Mr. Jones. Played ball out in North Carolina, old school cat. And he was like, you don't look like you deserve to be in here. He was like, I think you should continue to, you know what I'm saying, pursue your career outside of here. Like, you need to go to school. And then from there, I just started hanging with it was nothing wrong with my age group, but they just didn't have no discipline.
Right.
You know, so
that's
I just
started. That's a lot of our issues in our community.
There you go. So no discipline, no guidance, wrong decisions. So I just started hanging with the older crew.
So when you came home, you became a student athlete.
So when I came home, I became a student athlete. I went to a place called West Hampton, and I was playing ball there. And I knew a lot of people, but they was like, you know, like, where you been? Like, you huge, like, you know. And I began to tell them I was incarcerated. So this one particular day, you know, shout out to Jamal. He walked up on me. He was like, man, let me take you somewhere. I want to take you to meet this coach. I'm like, nah, I ain't really into none of that. So hopped in the car with him, went on to the deaf and blind school. Got to the gym, and the door didn't have any springs on it. So when you open it, it just slammed. Mm-hmm. So when it slammed, you know, the coach was like, who the F is that? Who is that in my gym? And I'm like, bro, I need to go.
I ain't trying to
I ain't trying to, I ain't trying to do none of that. So he was like, no. He was like, Coach, rest in peace to Coach Ant, let him play. Please let him play. Man, I went in there and played. Basically, it changed my life. Because Thomas Nelson led to St. Paul's College. And St. Paul's College led to Virginia State. But in the midst of St. Paul's, I tore my ACL. When I got down to when I got the scholarship offer to St. Paul's, it was a small scholarship offer. But when I got down there, they had a thing called red shirt, and I didn't know nothing about it. Mm-hmm. Most red shirts don't travel. They don't have the funding for it.
Right.
They put me within the budget.
Oh, wow. You were a special red shirt.
That's what I was, that's
back,
what I'm thinking.
Looking back. Red shirt.
So I traveled everywhere, And then at the time, they had recruited a new trainer, Michael Leonard, and very sophisticated guy. He was the one that taught me about eligibility, your clearinghouse, and I didn't know if you're a student athlete and you don't know about this stuff, if you get hurt. Yeah.
It's important. And they still struggling on the information.
And they struggle, and it's still miseducated on purpose.
I feel like they be setting us up.
They set you up, and at the end of the day, you got to take some accountability, though.
Right.
Unfortunately.
So you said a lot just now.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, so we're all about overcoming adversity.
Okay.
And clearly you've overcome.
Trying to.
You are.
You
have.
Yeah.
And you're still overcoming adversity.
Correct.
How did all of that, the things that you've gone through, play into being a student athlete?
It was, first, after I had completely blew out my knee, and then St. Paul shut down, forced me to transfer into another school, that's when I really realized that I was going to be facing adversity because I didn't have a plan B. In prison, it was sports. And I love my parents and everybody I was raised with, but college wasn't what they was preaching back then. Mm-hmm. Stay out of trouble, make sure you get a job, don't have no kids.
That's it.
That was then.
Top 3.
Correct. So once I got to Virginia State, it was a real college.
That was a shock for you, huh?
It was a shocker. And shout out to my professor, Dr. Zoe Spencer, because I sat in the back of the class every day. Scared.
What you scared of?
Went back to suppressing my feelings. Back around forgetting to get accustomed to strangers.
Was this due to your injury? Or just
the experience of environment? Younger, smarter. Don't get me wrong, St. Paul's was fine.
Yeah.
But it was a whole lot of people that had a black background like mine. So I could relate to them.
Right. Virginia State's still a HBCU?
Yeah, it was still a HBCU, but it was bigger. We had about 300 to 500 students at St. Paul's. I came somewhere where it was huge. Like the business department, you couldn't come in there if you weren't dressed up. Mm-hmm. Like I actually came to class late one day, and the door was locked. I'm like, hold on. Mm-hmm. They're like, nah, we don't do that over here. So then I had to get accustomed to that. Not running back home.
Not too far.
Not too far. And if I had a chance to do it over again, I love all my friends and family, but I would leave Virginia.
That's important, I feel, especially for student athletes, because a lot of us stay home. I stayed home. But it comes with a lot of distractions. I tell people all the time, like me being a hometown kid going to Hampton University, I still had access to everything. And they had access to me if I let it. But talk about the importance of leaving home, because if you don't have that strong mentality and that life balance, because you're not the same person you were.
No, you definitely not.
Going from a high school student athlete to a college student athlete, you're under a whole different spotlight.
Yep, and you are without most of your guidance. You're on your own. So the thing about staying home to me, like you said, when you do school is friends, that you're not supposed to be around, that's not in the same lane as you, that's not thinking like you, not talking like you. Yeah, family is good. Right.
And a lot of times they can't even relate to the things that you're going through.
That's why you sit and have conversations and they're not saying nothing.
For sure.
They walk
don't
off.
say a whole bunch of nothing.
A whole bunch of nothing. But now, for me, my friends is different. Because I told you I work on effective communication. You got to be able to communicate. You got to be able to talk in all type of environments. So everything that I face, all, like you say, that adversity, I can talk about 4 years of catching charges consistently after incarceration. Consistently. And continuously being able to just go forward. Not think about
it. You were a student athlete during these times?
Mm-hmm. Coming back home.
So how did you, that's a hell of a balance.
And
if there
and
was
it's hard
any.
to, yeah, and the thing about it, in which we discuss about mental balance and knowing your triggers and stuff, right? Eventually people opened my eyes and was like, some of the things you're doing, some of the people you hanging around, some of the places you're going to have to cut it out. You got potential. You got kids now. You got a family. If you got to hop in this car and think about what's in this car with this guy, you ain't even supposed to be there.
Exactly. Environment. And to your point, I know it's a lot of kids out there that's toting the line of being a student athlete and being in the street. At one point, I feel like I weigh back and forth, but I had to make a decision. Because if I know I want to be a collegiate athlete, all that other stuff, you got to let it go. Because eventually it's going to catch up to you.
It's going to catch up.
One way or another. And specifically being home, I still had access to all the street people I used to hang with. But I had to make that executive decision for myself that this is not who I am. This is not who I want to be. So talk about the importance of who you hang around. Specifically being a student athlete, because it's sad to say a lot of us don't have these conversations. So you don't know what you don't know. So we go to college still trying to be the same people we were in high school, being the same people around the same people. Right. And it doesn't work like that.
No. And like, I mean, you see it all the time. Somebody get famous and they take everybody from their neighborhood with them.
Can't work.
And it's not going to work now. Because the thing about it, if you're dedicated and you're a true athlete and you're trying to get to the next level right now, they're watching all that. I mean, they go back to your juvenile record. Every move, everything. I mean, and they don't even watch you. They watch the people that you be around.
You have no clue.
So, I mean, we not saying cut them off. You got to learn how to deal with them.
From afar?
From afar. I know some of my friends that's probably still out there doing stuff. But I don't have nothing to do with that. And I'm going to push you as far away from it as I can. But what I'm going to tell you is I can't be involved in it.
And you have to respect it.
And you got to respect it.
So talk about your journey of trying to do both. And what it did for you. Or it didn't.
I failed dramatically being a criminal. It's quick. Took me all about, everybody who knew me and knew what I was doing back then, it took me all about 6 months to jump off the porch and then be in prison. But it was a drastic 6 months. I mean, I jumped out there. And my parents and them, and honestly, they didn't know. I was living a double-sided life. I would come home from school, they would go to work, and I would jump out the back window. Straight to the hood. Play basketball, go shoot dice, go home.
That was your life.
That was the lifestyle. And then it just got, from there, it just got advanced too quick. Now, what I do now is I deal with this youth now, and would you rather me say, this gonna happen and you're gonna go down and you're gonna ruin your life, or would you rather experience it?
One or the other.
I would much rather you hear me tell you it. So that's what led me down the whole path for the youth, for being like going to school for sociology, a re-entry consultant, helping people get back in society and be balanced. I've been in society and been effective.
As you are now.
Yeah, as I'm, and I'm going to keep going. you know, and I raised my kids the same way. But it breaks my heart that I go into these juvenile systems and I see a 12-year-old with a manslaughter charge, right? And then I go home and I see my 12-year-old. I know it's two different lifestyles, but it's like somebody's child ain't gonna never be home. Never. So how a lot of stuff came together was accountability. Me and my uncle going into this detention center, right? And we talking to these kids, and then I say, hey, here it is 3 weeks. And I say, within the last 3 weeks, we done seen at least 7 or 8 of these kids return. So are we gonna hold ourselves accountable though?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, what we doing ain't right. I mean, it's not enough.
Right.
So what we gonna do now?
Exactly.
Effective communication, process, TLD, talk, listen, develop.
Talk, listen, I like that. I like that a lot.
That's part of the nonprofit. So I can't go too deep into it because, you know, we still getting everything worked out and everything. But that's what Marcus brings to the table, effective communication.
So when we talk about our community, your story is a lot like a lot of athletes from where we come from. Overcoming adversity and just I feel like your experience let kids know that it's still possible. It's going to always be possible. And it takes a lot of mental strength and emotional strength, clarity, healing, really just dealing with stuff and holding yourself accountable. Talk about that accountability that you had to have with yourself because you knew where you're trying to go. Even when you were incarcerated, you knew that you wanted to play ball at some type of level. And you have to worry about what people think of you.
Yeah, and it's crazy because I heard people say they don't care. I care. I got a reputation to uphold, and I want to leave here with the strong reputation. So it's just crazy because I can push through this stuff and without a frown, without a cry, without a tear.
But everybody doesn't have that mentality.
And that's when you come to learning yourself. And I came home the end of 2009, and it's probably took me all the way up until like a year ago to actually settle, put my feet grounded and say, man, we gotta tighten up.
Just last year?
Yeah, because the environment, Virginia is a tough place to live.
It is.
We lack resources. We lack a lot of guidance. Majority of the jobs, I love people, I do. Majority of the jobs is, you know, shipyard, military, nursing.
Yeah.
Clothing line.
Yeah.
You know. We have the number one state. I think we have the number one state to start your own business.
I can believe that.
Yeah.
I can believe that.
Most people won't get out of their comfort zone and actually do what they're good at instead of doing what somebody else is doing.
Because this is what we're used to.
Yeah. So,
and Virginia also I feel like it's a big sports state.
It's okay.
And I feel that as athletes, we're only exposed to so much. For it to be such a big sports state, the reality is we don't have any professional teams.
We don't.
So the few that make it out are very blessed to do so. But talk about just thinking outside the box and putting yourself in different environments so you can see different stuff.
So I've been with my wife about 14 years. And if it wasn't for her, I would have never went outside of like traveling and seeing different stuff and looking at life different. My first trip leaving, I didn't even want to come back to Virginia. I was like, I'm about to go out here, get rich, get money. But then went 1,000 steps back thinking about who else I can take with me instead of getting myself together. You know what I'm saying? So now my biggest thinking outside the box now is when situations come about and I actually take myself completely out of my shoes and think, what are you thinking, what you've been through, and what has happened?
Perspective.
And I do that in every situation now. And it took me a while to do that. And I call that consideration. Being considerate.
You have to be.
You have to be.
Because you really never know what people are going through. Like yourself. If you would never told me your story, I would never know.
Man, we went through so many deaths. I just buried my little brother Saturday, 29. Had a cousin committed suicide a couple years ago. Of course, I did incarceration. My oldest brother been incarcerated. My brother up under there been incarcerated. My dad's been incarcerated. My stepdad has been incarcerated. And then you look back and it's like, you went through all that. You still went to prison. You came out. You went to school. You got married. You built a house. You got 4 kids. And now all I want to do is help other people.
And
That's my biggest thinking outside the box. And then I thought about it was like, you ain't going to be to help everybody. I really thought that I was. Looking at the teens, I work with adults too. You know, I mean, remember when we I'm hard and I heard it, I'm very hard-headed, but it's like, I gotta try.
Because you'll never know unless you do.
Right. And I know my triggers. So I'm only gonna let myself get pushed for so far.
That's huge, knowing your triggers.
You have to know your triggers. You have to know it because you'll get so far. And that's the thing about these teens. They don't know it. And they suppress their feelings. They will not communicate to their parents inside their household. They will go outside for guidance.
The reality of that is, though, in the Black community, this is what we're used to doing. Yeah. And to your point, like, we're used to seeing people incarcerated. We're used to seeing people down. Like, that's the norm for us. And I know as a student athlete, I went through a lot of deaths that nobody cared about because I was an athlete.
But it broke you.
I suppressed a lot of feelings. Right. Because at the end of the day, I tell people all the time, like, yeah, I lost both my grandmas in 2-week time frame, but it was preseason. I had to come right back to being a basketball player. We don't really get a chance to be anything but an athlete.
Right.
And we talk about suppressing our feelings. And I know myself, I suppressed a lot because I was an athlete. Right. Did you go through the same thing or?
Yeah, I before, from my childhood up until being an athlete, I had always had a problem with talking and suppressing my feelings. People considered it shy. That's what they called it back then. That wasn't shy.
I just didn't like y'all.
I just didn't. I just was used to what I was used to until I went to prison, and that's when it was like, you got people in here you don't know. You got different religions, different gangs, different races, other people that don't bother each other, popular people, and where you gonna fit in at?
Gotta find a way.
You better.
You gotta find a way. It's a lot of skills that we pick up as a student athlete naturally. Talk about how those skills helped you get through life, either pre-incarceration or post-incarceration.
Well, I know, like, far as being incarcerated, I always had a good soul, just being humble. Just a humble guy. And people take people that's humble for granted.
Tell me about it.
And it's, and it's bad.
And in this day and age, being humble don't get you nowhere.
It don't get you nowhere. That's why you have to have other benefits of yourself. You be, like I keep telling, I'm going to continue to say it, communication is one of my pet peeves. It's crazy because I preach it so hard, right? And my wife be like, I want you to talk to me. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, all these people I help out here, right? And I tend to struggle in my own household with certain conversations because of feelings, if it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of us go through that.
So
how do you fight through that? And
getting out of my comfort zone, actually thinking how somebody would feel how would I feel if somebody shut down on me? How would I feel if somebody said you don't communicate enough? Now.
And you out here preaching communication.
And I'm out here preaching it, and it's like, and I know people say communication is just be different communication when I'm talking to them kids, when I'm talking to the youth, when I'm dealing with these adults, because they're going through what I done already been through. It's hard for somebody to understand something that they never experienced. They can say all day, I feel you, but you don't.
For real. And I feel like us being in these positions as people that's going through stuff, that's what the kids need to see. And that's what they relate to, which is why I'm so transparent about my journey, because as a student athlete or as an athlete, period, all you know is this K.
Right.
She did this.
There
She
you go.
did that. Accolades this, accolades that. But on the other side of that, I've been fighting for my life in a lot of different areas, at home, through relationships, with family situations, and just being a part of the Black community. And back to communication, though. I feel that I went through what I went through to open myself up.
Gotcha.
Because if it wasn't for me going through what I went through, I wouldn't be having these conversations.
You wouldn't be having it. Yeah.
It would be no Sport Exposure podcast.
Man, you know how many people randomly text me or hit me and just say, man, I am so proud of you. Some of the situations you was in, I don't know how you got out of. You got to go out here and you got to talk and you got to help these people. You know, so even in the detention centers, I be telling these kids, I be like, you in this cell and they going to wake you up in the morning.
Bright lights.
When your feet hit the ground, if you already understanding that you ain't having a bad day, what's the purpose of walking out the door for? Gather yourself. Write down your thoughts.
Take your time.
Take your time. Process your thoughts. Which is what we gonna do with TLD, talk, listen, develop. But the thing about it is, the kids like, Unc in here, Marcus is in here. When we leave, we need somewhere to go. And that's what we providing. Safe space, somewhere where you can be productive, skill building, life coaching. You know, this program gonna require parents to do orientation. You're gonna understand.
That's a big thing.
You're gonna understand the expectations from us, you, and your child. What's the purpose of sending your son to the daycare and get potty trained? I told you. And then you get home and you put a pamper on.
And I feel like right now in sports, the lack of starts at home. It's a lot of kids that, as a coach or as a trainer, or even as a mentor, I can hold your child to a certain standard, but when they go home, if you're not holding that same standard,
There you go.
I wouldn't say I'm wasting my time, but
you know what's so crazy?
Doing?
You know how many kids just want to be athletes, right? I'm gonna make it make sense to you, right? Athletes, right? They just want to play the sport. They want to grow up. They want to go to practice. They want to train, right? Now, kids are forced to play, right? Which is what's leading them to dislike a lot of stuff, sports. And they be getting high school and they say, what? My son he don't even want to play basketball no more. He don't even want. So I got a wrestler at the house. I got a wrestler. I never wrestled. Never.
You let him choose his own
I let him choose. He chose basketball. He didn't like it. He chose football. I told his mom and all. And we're not forcing him to do it. He gonna find a career.
But you'd be surprised how many athletes, even collegiate athletes, are literally only doing it because mommy and daddy said so.
They said so, and they want them to be proud. And if they feel like they failed you, then they failed themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know. So with my kids now is like, I preach, you know, being athletic and working out and everything, but I'm like, what is like now? I got a 13-year-old. I got a 12-year-old, a 11, a 7, and a 2-year-old. So to the 12, 11, and the 7-year-old, it's like not a goal, a plan to get to your goal.
Right. And I remember we talked about plan Bs, and you said you didn't have one.
And
while you were incarcerated, you did all of that.
Yeah.
To be an athlete.
Yeah.
Got to where you wanted to go.
Got to where I wanted to go.
And blew your knee out.
And blew my knee out, and I think I told you I played a total of 5 or 6 games. Did all that. And in the midst of that, I couldn't mentally bounce back from it. I just would play ball and be scared, messing around with that knee. But the trainer said, I'm going to make you the best spot-up shooter or shooter in the CIAA. But still in all, I didn't believe him.
Why not?
I just didn't believe in it. Just won't there mentally.
And we see a lot of athletes that Well, it's typically basketball, that knee injury.
Yeah. And
some folk don't ever bounce back.
It's hard to. And then I tore it at the wrong school. Even though he got the surgery and got everything that I needed, it was just like the school shut down. I got to Virginia State. They had a new coach. They had already did the recruiting. I was at Virginia State trying out for Virginia Union. And you know, you ain't got no face. I ain't got no back. I ain't got nobody pushing for me. They like, who is this guy? He's 27.
Chasing that ball.
Chasing that ball, just not even thinking about. And I didn't focus, and to piggyback off what you said, I didn't focus on another career until my professor said, "Yo, A, gon' fail." Look me right in the face. She said, "I tell you, sit back there every day, and you gonna fail." And I was like, "It's fast." I just came from St. Paul. She said, "I don't care."
Nobody cares.
I was like, I just came home from prison. She was like, tomorrow, when we walk in this class, or the next day, you get in the front and you tell these people your story. We're gonna have a whole discussion about who is Marcus.
Is that what happened?
And that led to that. And
what did that do for you?
And it showed me that, like, I didn't have to be scared to communicate. I didn't have to hide who I was, and that people was gonna accept me for who I was. And just tell your story. And then it went from that quiet guy in the back of the class, and that's the old head that just got out of prison to play ball. He nice. Go talk to him too. He cool. And before you know it, everybody just came to me for advice, guidance.
And I tell people all the time, and it's still a learning process for me, but it's important to tell our story.
It's very important.
Because as athletes, no matter what I look like or went through, it's kids that look up to me just because I got this ball in my hand.
Yeah. And all y'all
just for the fact that I have this ball in my hand, I could be trash. But like you said, everybody wants to be an athlete,
and they can relate to you. Like, if you just being yourself, who you are. Like, I go in them detention centers as is. My uncle said, he said, you don't gotta throw no button up and no tie. Don't cover up your tattoo. That is who you are.
And that's what they need to see.
Don't pull up no chairs. Sit your butt right at that table with them. And that's what they need to see. And that's all that that's it. The people come in there with their shirt and ties on. I don't have nothing against it, but it's just not the atmosphere to try to grab somebody's attention in there.
It's not. And even being in the community outside now, when I go talk to schools and I talk to kids and other athletes, I pull up however I feel like pulling up, because that's what they resonate with.
That's what they're going to do.
Like, 9 times, they're probably not going to respect me as much as I come in with a suit, pinstripe suit on.
And you trying to tell them what to do instead of asking them. I ask the kids now, like, one of my biggest mentors, because he told me, he said, I don't want to know what you want to do. I want to know what you're good at.
Right. Because a lot of times what we want to do and what we're good at
ain't going to add up.
The math don't be mathing.
I went from student athlete to counseling kids and people who are coming home that was incarcerated. Some of the closest people I've met, is between college and being incarcerated, to people that I grew up with that had betrayed me. I'm talking about backstab me so bad that I began to lose trust in everything and everybody. To the point where some days I just really just dealt with what I created, my family.
I mean, that's what's important.
Yeah. But then I couldn't be like that. This would have been selfish, because I never would have opened up to nobody else. I just would have said, it is what it is.
Would you credit telling your story to figuring out your plan B? Because a lot of athletes, student athletes, we struggle with that.
Yeah.
And we don't necessarily know where to start because nobody really tells us where to start.
Yeah.
Like, once I put that ball down, I knew that my life wasn't gonna be basketball forever. So I knew how to maneuver and use what I had, my resources, while I had that ball. Right. But a lot of athletes, one, aren't aware of the resources that they have, or two, don't have somebody like us to tell them, why you got that ball in your hand? Use every resource in front of you.
And see, now I was just telling somebody yesterday, and I was like, when we used to go to school back in the day, you would have one Pacific guidance counselor that everybody wanted to go to. And he would have so many cases he couldn't take on no more, or she.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Because that's
Because
who we felt comfortable with.
that's who we felt comfortable with. But we trying to create an environment where you go into the school where every guidance counselor in the office is going to be as supportive, as needing, as effective. You know, so that's things that I'm working on, that I promised myself that I'm gonna do, because leading to this career really led to like mental health issues. I was depressed, stressed. You know, I never thought about harming myself, but I gave up.
And to that point, going through what we go through at home, in society,
Mm-hmm.
and I can relate to that. I never thought about harming myself,
Mm-hmm.
but I also understand.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a lot of times people look like, yo, how are you even here? I can't tell you how.
Yeah.
But that thought, though, I've never had it. But a lot of people can't escape that thought, which leads to suicide or kids trying to harm themselves.
Which is basically what my cousin did. He just,
You can't escape those thoughts.
yeah.
And when we talk about outlets, as an athlete, you don't have many.
No. You got to create them. And unfortunately, with 2023 and how things are, like, you gotta do stuff that you don't normally do. You gotta get totally outside of yourself. Completely out of your norm.
And that leads to being a better you.
And it means you being a better you. You tell your story. You realize how many people are affected by it. You realize how many people are going through the same thing. The same thing.
I mean, you don't know unless you know, though.
Like, you don't know. And then it took for me to talk to somebody.
Like a therapist?
Like,
or just period?
Just period. You know, just period. And by me being a therapist or / counselor, it was crazy, because it was hard for me to go to one. Because I would go to one and I would tell them look, this is a sensitive case. I'm going to know if you're studying my notes. I'm going to know if you're going to be listening to me. Because when I come in here the next time, the conversation, some days ain't going to require you to pick up a notebook. I'm going to just need you to listen. And therapists couldn't handle that. So then I leaned on, people say, church fellowship. Well, I found my own fellowship within guys that was going through some things that I was going through, but their career was taking a path. And I fitted in right where they needed that mental balance. So now I have friends where I help them strictly with mental balance. That's it. Anything that they talk about, anything that they go through, I'm already leveling them out, telling them what they should do.
I mean, we all need that. I think you said a good point. Kids, if you can't find a therapist, if you don't feel comfortable with therapists, just find somebody. Mm-hmm. Somebody to talk to, because life is hard.
It's rough.
Athlete, student athlete, post-student athlete. You ain't never picked up a balling day in your life.
Especially as an athlete. And if you ain't made it to where you thought you was going to be and you end up back home.
A lot of kids go through that.
And they go through that, and then the fact being the friends and the family do not notice it.
Because they used to you being in one light.
And a lot of them, unfortunately, don't care. They done got to the age where they feel like
figure it out.
And it shouldn't be like that.
It shouldn't. So what advice would you have to those student athletes that are back home? This is a lot of them. And they're forced to come back home. And if you think about it, a lot of us been playing ball all our lives. So if I've been playing ball for 20-some years, and I don't get to where I just worked my ass off for 20-some years, and I'm back at the crib, it hurts your pride.
It hurts your pride. And it's like...
It kills your pride.
It kills your pride. And so my uncle came up with this saying, right? Before I got into the counseling and everything, I was struggling with getting into the field. So I would work these warehouse jobs. And he would call me on purpose. I didn't even know that he was doing this. And he would say, "How you doing?" I'm like, "Good." He was like, "Well, they paying you good?" And I was like, "It's all right." So every question, he noticed it was good, all right, good, all right. And he say, "Dang, man, you totally just forgot about being great. You ain't even, you content with good to the point where you stop being great. So just because you didn't get the way you say you wanted to go, it don't stop.
You gotta keep that mindset.
You gotta keep the mindset. You gotta keep going. Surround yourself around positive energy. Like when I get frustrated and I get stressed now, I write and I go to the gym. That's what I do.
Because that's your outlet.
That's my outlet. If I can't get to the two, I think. I gotta give myself that space. So therefore, I had to come up with a career that allowed me to do that, because I wouldn't have been able to do that at a 9 to 5. I need to take a 10. I need to take a 15.
Mm-hmm.
No, you ain't. You need to get back on this production line, and now you done triggered me. Now I don't even want to be here no more. So now I'm not even at my full potential no more.
Right. And a lot of athletes struggle with taking regular jobs. Please tell them you gotta do what you gotta do to get to where you're trying to go.
You got to do what you gotta do to where you gotta go. You have to. And like I say, most people just have a goal. That's cool. You have to have a plan. A plan is going to get you to your goal. That's why most people they don't complete what they started. Because they hit a hump that they ain't think about, and they like, But everybody preach go, 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 go. And it's like,
no plan.
It's no plan. What's a plan without a goal?
Right.
So, and now, and shout out to my uncle too. He had 2 life sentences. He came home. He did a total of about 27 years. Very educated, very full of knowledge, But some of the things he comes to my house for, he never had a chance to be in his daughter's life. He didn't know how to grieve. He suppressed his feelings. So he see me in the household, and he see me with my kids, and he gets emotional because
he never had the opportunity.
Yeah, and I tell him, instead of getting emotional, go ahead, sit down, play with them. They're good kids.
Right.
They're gonna make you feel at home. They are just as much blood to you as they is to me.
Right.
Their goddad, I met him in college. Been over there since day one. A real goddad though. Like if something ever happened, I ever have to leave here, he's gonna be. He does it now.
And it's important to have those people in your life.
And people have to realize sometimes it's not the person that you grew up with. And it's okay.
As much as we want it to be.
Yeah. It's okay to tell this person, you ain't my best man at my wedding. It's okay.
And it's normal.
And it's, but now people tend to have these funny friendships because they know if I say something, they ain't gonna talk to me for a while. Instead of holding your friends accountable. Because I just posted on Facebook, I said, start holding people accountable for the things they do and say, and see how many friends you have by the end of the week or the end of the month.
No, the end of the week.
I'm telling you, because it's a lot of...
It don't take time. It don't take much.
It don't take much.
Show their true colors ASAP.
Everybody around me, they're able to tell me about myself or anything that we do or whatever. And it's not even conversations like that because we're professional. We're men. We know. We got one angle. Get these youths what they need, these resources. You drop the crime rate. This kid, he punching people. That he's saying, I'm angry. But he got to say it instead of hitting somebody.
Right.
He's communicating, but he's communicating in the wrong fashion. So how can we decrease that? To trigger that energy somewhere else. I had a 7-year-old. My youngest client was 7. He was more violent than a grown man. He would walk past the desk and pick up a hardback book and hit you right across the back of your head.
7 years old.
7 years old. I had a sister and a brother. It was a drug-infested neighborhood. Mother, father was into drugs. And it was troubling because I would go pick him up, right? And the firm wanted me so bad that they hired me without my driver's license. Right?
I know you were.
And being that I was a convicted felon in the crimes I had, they had these things called barrier crimes. We have 176 in Virginia. Commonwealth State.
Good old Commonwealth.
So I'm in Virginia State, taking up a degree that I got blockage in.
You didn't know that at the time.
No, I ain't think of none of it. And that's why I say guidance. People know this. You know my story. But guess what? They don't care. See, it's a lot of people that's about to be facing a lot of the same thing. I'm trying to get them to avoid that.
That's what it's all about, pouring back. That's what sport exposure is here.
That's why it's here, you know. So they dropped the caseload on that 7-year-old. A shooting happened one day when I went to go pick him up. His dad got shot. And they dropped it. But it was so bad to the point that, like, they was like, all right, when you come get him, he doesn't even have to come to school. I'm like, cool, I can do my own interventions with him. We going to the park.
Simple.
Give me the schoolwork. Give me everything. He got out the car. 5 laps around the track, please, sir. 5 laps. 5 laps.
Yeah.
He come back. He ain't got no energy to do nothing to nobody. He ain't got nothing. Get here, write down how you feel. Right quick. Draw me a picture. 2 more laps. And the most depressing part was on his way home, that drive home. Body would just sink in the chair.
That makes me so sad.
It's messed up.
Will you credit your story to having a ball in your hands? What do you think your life would have been like without that?
Without the ball? Probably would have been. I mean, I could tell you. I'd have been dead or in prison. Everybody who know me know that. I mean, everybody know now, like, he got a success story. But if you know me, the people that's gonna see this, they're gonna be like, yeah, he definitely would have been in jail for life or in somebody's grave.
And a lot of athletes coming from our community, specifically Black community, the same story.
Yeah, and we have so many talented athletes down here, right? And the thing about it is, people just look at talent, look at the potential. That's what's gonna make
that talent gonna run out.
Talent gonna run out. So if you got a basketball team, right, and you got 5 starting players, that's nice, right? But you got 3 potentials and 2 that don't got no talent on the team, right? So you got a total of 10 players, right? Mm-hmm. You can't take them 5 out and replace them 5 with that on the bench and expect them to be effective. You build up the other 3 that has potential, and then the ones that has the potential can also help the ones that doesn't have no potential. They'll find their spot.
For sure.
And that's how you build a team. But now a lot of teams is built on raw talent. The cats the guys who are on the side.
Stacking them up.
They stacking them and they recruiting them now.
Like that, to be stacked.
That's it. And you ain't looking at the potential. Like my son had potential in football. But you ain't look at his potential and put him where he wanted to be, which forced him to be somewhere he wasn't good at, right. Which forced him to what? Wrestling. He said, I want one-on-one. I'm not going on the line no more. I'm 80 pounds. These guys 100, 200 pounds, and they sandwiching me. And my coach talking about I'm fast. He was like, I'm going one-on-one.
Tell us anything.
Yeah, he said, I'm going one-on-one. I ain't got to watch my back. I ain't got to do nothing. And then he just learned self-discipline. It's great. I got the 11-year-old. He cooks, cleans, works, and play basketball. Gymnastics and the daughter.
Sports teaches us so much.
Yeah. But I'm allowing them to do it. I'm not forcing them. And we also have conversations with them. What are we doing good as parents? What are we not doing good? What could we improve in?
You started that communication early?
Yeah, we started it a long time ago.
That's good.
But I had to strengthen my marriage first. But before I strengthened my marriage, I had to strengthen myself.
That's a whole nother podcast. That's a whole nother podcast. So 2 final questions.
Yep.
Risk and reward. Talk about a moment in your journey as a student athlete, post-student athlete, where a risk turned out to be a reward.
I mean, to be honest with you, prison. I got up there, and the things that I was doing was providing me money. But it was costing me my life. Right?
Real risky.
It looked bad. It looked very risky. And years ago, and being in prison, it looked bad. But then you come out now and umpteen amount of talent, potential.
Look what it did for you.
And I'm still going. And I'm fine. That's the crazy thing about it. Everything I go through, I'm fine. But prison is going to be my story.
It is your story.
And what I've been through coming up, the people that I've been around, the athletes who didn't come back and do this.
Right.
You know, because they need you.
For sure.
Yeah.
And finally, sport exposure is all about exposing our experiences, exposing our journey, what is it? You're talking to a student athlete. What do you want to expose? Something that you wish somebody would expose to you? You work with kids.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of stuff that needs to be exposed and is not. So if you're talking to a current student athlete with a story, or one like yours, what are you going to tell them?
Sit back and think. Like, give yourself some time to process your thoughts, especially if it's in a situation like mine and you still trying to figure out where you're going. Because I'm still trying to figure out where I'm going. I have directions. But some of them I'm going to have to turn. I'm going to have to make a couple U-turns.
Reroute, yeah.
I'm going to have to reroute. But have a base. Believe. I'm getting into church. My wife is on me about it. I keep saying it. I'm watching it on TV every now and then. I ain't
That's a
in there.
start, though.
I know it's like when I walk in there, I just get like goosebumps. And it's like he's like, get out of there. Like, but he really calling me. But it's like, and surround yourself around good people. Identify the value in people. And must have a plan to go along with your goal. Continue to read, continue to communicate, help others. If you got resources you can't use that you see others can, stop blocking their blessing and get them the resources.
Right.
So, and that's pretty much it.
You have such an inspiring story. And if any athlete doesn't take anything from this story, understand that your story doesn't define you.
No.
At the end of the day, we all go through stuff. You've been in jail. I've been in jail. And we still here.
We still here.
I'm still here to tell the story, and I walk in my story proudly. You walk in your story proudly. Yeah. And any student athlete is watching this and listen to this, understand that you can change the trajectory of your life at any point in your time. Mm-hmm. Any moment in time, you control the narrative. Control it.
Accountability.
For sure. But thank you so much for taking this time.
Thank you for having me. I was nervous the whole time, but you got me through, and I appreciate you bringing me on.
Space.
No, it definitely is a safe space. It's new to me. I'm starting to get to being on the camera more. That was something that I had a problem with in college too. That she helped me with getting up to the podium, looking up, talking to people. So it's like it's nothing to be nervous about, but it's like it's your story. I don't want it to be judged, but I want it to be all taken in and comprehended the right way.
And that's only going to happen by you being yourself.
Gotcha.
So thank you for being you.
Gotcha. No problem. Thank you.
We'll catch y'all next time.